Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it, well, everyone should recognize our guest. If you've been a longtime listener, we have Deb Baker back on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from the UK again, where I just got to warn everyone, it is 6 o'clock her time and she is drinking coffee. So, that's just proving what kind of an interview we're going to have right now, just basically talking to her. But yeah, she's on here to give us an update on what she's been up to. It's been basically a year and a half, I'd say, since we last had her on. Yeah, almost, a year and a half exactly now that I think about it. But, yeah, Debbie, thank you so much for coming back on.
No problem. Thanks for having me back on again.
Well, I ask this question every single time, no matter how many times people say, oh, it's the dumbest icebreaker ever, but what's the weather like today?
Really warm here. We've had weeks and weeks of heat waves here, hitting like 30, 36 degrees, 40 degrees. I know you guys work in Fahrenheit, don't you? But it's been hot. Hence why I've got a fan on today, because it's just hot.
It literally surprised me that people in the UK had never really experienced that type of heat really normally, because like I was talking to someone from Texas a couple days ago and it was like 106 down there when I was talking to them, which is probably like upper 40s or mid 40s or something like that, and that's like average there. We got 2 days here where it got over 100, so I don't know what that is in Celsius, but I really do not like that. Like, I think it's the US and one other country that does Fahrenheit. We're the only ones. So it's too confusing for me, especially talking to other people, but that's a whole different debate for a whole different podcast where it's like, yeah, I think we need to either change things or just force the entire world to change with. I don't know. It's going to be one of either two things, but that's the most American thing saying, is that the whole world's going to change with us. So before we get into all that, why don't you give us an update on what you've been up to? I mean, it's been a year and a half since we last had you on.
Yeah, so last year I moved up to women's physique last year, because I've done figure, I've done loads of different subcategories here before. We have different federations and different versions of figure. So I transitioned into women's physique last year. I did well. I mean, I won my class, won the overall, but my conditioning wasn't the best. It was crap. That's putting it blunt. It was crap. So I took some time off. I had it after I came out of that show. I was in quite a weird headspace, because I was told a lot of, really bad information about women's physique, and I had loads of misconceptions floating about. So I thought, well, I can't compete in figure anymore because my structure and stuff doesn't suit figure. So I have to go in women's physique, and the things that I have to do to go there, I don't want to do. So I kind of just sort of floated about, trained, ate well. And then I spoke to my coach that I'm currently with now around sort of September time. I said, look, I want to give this a go. My thing is I want to remain as feminine as I can, and, do as little PDs and stuff as possible. So, I mean, that's most people's take on it. I guess everyone's different, but that's my own choice. So we started, my off season with him was literally 4 months. So we did a 4-month off season. And then we started prep in end of February, so it's February 21st of this year, so 2022. And we prepped right the way through to the 30th of July. So within that time, I originally set out to do 2 shows. So I did the MK Classic, which was a regional qualifier. So I did that one. I won my height class in the overall on that one. Even just entering those, just enters you to do the pro qualifier. Then I flew to Finland and did the pro qualifier there. And I again won my height and the overall, but there were sub 5 athletes, which meant I didn't get my pro card, which was quite annoying. I even got to take pictures with it in case I got granted it. It was, I've got very much dangling the carrot. So I did appeal that, but so this is 2 weeks back to back. So I did that one on the 16th, and then it was 23rd, the Finland Pro. And when I was in Helsinki, I was offered a commercial to work in Spain. So I did a commercial. So I flew from Helsinki to Madrid. I was there for a week during prep again, because I hadn't heard anything. I had to stay in prep and then head for the British, because I hadn't heard anything. And I just couldn't miss out on the opportunity. So again, I was there I think it hit 47 degrees when I was out in Spain. And that was tough, very, very tough. You start getting like a bit swollen, you're holding water, you're flying around. You're holding water, you're stressing about holding water. So it just
While she's talking, I'm looking up the conversion for 47 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So I'm just letting everyone know.
It was hot. So I did that. I did the job. It was a job that I couldn't turn down.
116 degrees? Jesus.
It was hot. Very, very, very hot. Even the Spanish were struggling. but I mean, like that, like I said, that was such a great opportunity that I couldn't turn down. So, and it's for me as well. It's being an advocate for the sport, for women's physique, women's muscle. So I thought, you know what, if I can be in a commercial that's going to be aired internationally with, you know, a muscular physique, you know, why not? That's awesome. So did that. Then I flew back on the Thursday and I had to compete on the Saturday. No, sorry, the Sunday. I came in lighter. I came in lighter at the British, but I just think with doing 3 shows back to back, my physique was just done. It didn't want to. Even though I came in lighter, I feel like I was flatter. I was holding water. I mean, the other previous 2 shows, I came in diced. I came in very good condition. I just don't think my body could do it anymore. So the woman that I beat at the regional went against me and beat me, and then took her pro card. But you know, she deserved that win. She came in tighter. She made the differences she needs to make in those 2 weeks. So and you know, I did other things when, you know, I wasn't really meant to do the British, but it was just an opportunity. I had to do it. I mean, I want my pro card, so it was two instances where I just missed out on it, and I did appeal the pro card with the IFBB, but they told me no. They said you need to bring up your legs and also add more size to your arms as well, which I was a bit weird about the arms, but the legs I can agree on, but the arms I was like, I'll add more on the arms, but you know, it was a great season nonetheless. It's a very good season. I improved from last year, and yeah, that's kind of the competitive season. And now, obviously, as you can see, I'm back into an off season now.
I mean, the most fascinating part about your story is how you can just go from Helsinki just to Spain. It's like that's the good part about Europe, I guess, is that like you can just travel to other countries like that, where it's like I'm just gonna go to Canada. Really, that's the only thing that I could really ever do. And it's like, yeah, really different cultures between us two. So you know, it's a joke, but I appreciate. But I mean, so when they were telling you, like when you appealed your decision and then they said no, they were basically saying like, was it? I mean, I don't want to like say, but like, were they kind of just saying like you don't deserve it then by saying like, oh, you need to work on this stuff before we give you your thing, even though you competed in a show that just didn't have enough guests to come on and get your pro card?
Yeah, so the appeal basically, I suppose in so many words, I said you're not good enough to have your pro card yet, which is fine, but saying that if a fifth athlete had turned up, they would have had to have given me the card anyway. So
That is so stupid. Like when you really think about it, where it's like, and there was another guest that I had on, Jenny Moline, who was in Sweden, and then she did the same thing with a show where there was either like 3 or 4 guests, and yeah, like you need the fifth to do, which I just don't. It's like the people have paid, they've showed up. It's like, what's the point of not giving out a pro card then if you've put in all that hard work? So I don't get that myself. Where it's like, well, then that's on the promoter then that they aren't able to get enough athletes to go on the show. You don't punish the contestants when it should just be, you know, hey, it's not their
yeah,
fault that many people, you know.
it was a little bit frustrating. I'm not going to lie at first, but you know, the initial week coming out of prep, you know, it was such a hectic few months. You know, I was busy doing interviews and jobs and competing. And then you come out of it. And I mean, I'm still busy, but I'm not doing those types of things at the minute. And excuse me, the first week was I was a bit down. You know, I wasn't like I should have had this, that. I know that the decision was made for a reason. And as the weeks have progressed, I've come to terms with it a little bit more. So, you know, I was just like, it wasn't my time. I wasn't meant to have it. You know, I've been competing for like 7.5 years. I've been bodybuilding for 7.5 years. So, you know, it's one of those things. I'm not one of those people to give up because I've not been granted it. That was my first proper attempt at my pro card. So our plan is mine and my coaches to have. I said I want at least 12 months off. I want to just build the density. I want to do it in a long term thing as well. I don't want to rush pressing on the tissue. I want the tissue to stay, and I want the tissue to be quality tissue. So
Well, and we talked about this before. I mean, you got very conditioned this last prep. As you and like you said before, it's like the prep that you did a year ago, you weren't as conditioned. And what changes did you make that you got so lean and so good? Because like I saw some stories of you where like you were walking and you were talking to things, and I was like, I can't believe that. Is that Debbie really? Like you did a great job with your conditioning at least this last prep.
so initially I changed my coach. So my coach was one of the main factors I would say that actually helped me with that. So he's very, very experienced with getting large women in condition. Previous coaches that I've worked with have normally been, no offense, working with bikini athletes, which sorry, it's fly,
No problem.
which is not it's not as difficult. It's not me belittling anyone or saying they don't work as hard, but it's far more difficult to get a woman with more muscle into condition. You know, you've got so many more factors to play with. So he played a pivotal role in that. I also, I mean, I did an interview about this on my YouTube. So stress. was the biggest one for me. Removing any factors, people, things that distracted me and caused me stress. And my body does swell up as soon as I get stressed. It swells, and I had a new take on things this year. I was so focused. I didn't get hungry in the prep. I didn't cheat on my diet. I mean, previous preps I have done that due to stress. Uh, Nothing, and it just felt so smooth, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Even if I was out in the rain with my weighted vest on, getting splashed by trucks and stuff like that, didn't really bother me. I loved it. I was like, I'm doing this, and someone else probably isn't, so that's where it's going to get me. So yeah, I had that laser focus this year.
Wow, cloudy and rainy in the UK. Never heard of that one before. But no, but I mean, yeah, I just saw the changes, and yeah, you did a great job with that. But I do got to ask, because like the UK and the USA, when it comes to their bodybuilding shows, like the categories can be different. Where like if you were to have like a physique competitor from the US and a physique competitor from the UK, sometimes the posing's a little bit different. Sometimes other things are different. Are there any significant differences from a women's physique competitor in the competing in Europe than there are in the States?
Again, so we have our own podcast, and we discussed this on a recent episode. So the what we find is we can in the UK they look for you to be more conditioned. They want you drier, more striations and stuff like that. Whereas and again, people can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but then if you look at women's physique in America, for instance, like the glutes, for instance, they want boxed off glutes, whereas here in the UK they look for more like striated glutes and conditioning. So I think yes, there is definitely a difference. Posing as well. So I had all of my posing, I'm self-taught, but I did have Rachel Daniels help me with one posing session. So she tweaked a few of mine, and yeah, I mean, she had similar sort of, the way I have for like a couple of my own signature poses that I do, and you can kind of present your physique however you see fit. I think really, unless the judge is very particular on how you present yourself. So we did have a judge here, Jack Sullivan, who was from America, and when I was doing my front relaxed, Rachel told me to go wider stance, whereas he asked me to go narrower stance. So being a previous figure competitor, I used to go super tucked in with feet out, whereas physique, you're barefoot and you can go a little bit wider because you're posing to look bigger, right? So that was a little bit confusing for me because I'd always been taught to go slightly wider for that front relax, whereas Jack Sullivan looked at my pictures and said narrow it up. So again, but that's one judge, isn't it? So it's just I suppose the feedback from what they want on the day. It's very difficult, isn't it?
Well, small world, because I went to my first bodybuilding show. It was literally 5 miles away from my house, and Rachel Daniels was the guest poser at
Oh,
the
really?
thing. Yep. So I got to see all that. But what was that? What was that like now? Not having to wear those high heels when now that
It's the
you're a
best.
physique competitor. Yeah.
I have them. I mean, they're literally hung up over there, but it's the best feeling ever because with, like I said, in the UK, we have things like NABA, things called PCA, so they're different federations, and within those, you've got figure categories. But again, each subcategory varies in condition, symmetry, size, things like that. So you still had to wear the heels and do stuff like side chest, but it was a very different side chest, front double bicep to what an IFBB women's physique competitor would do. So yeah, I mean, just being able to plant your feet on the floor and push through the floor and move without tripping over, amazing. I much prefer it.
Oh yeah, and I forgot. So your podcast. What's the name of the podcast? I'll leave a link down below for anyone to go check it out.
It's the WPD podcast.
BPD podcast. See, I wish I would have came up with a name like that. I see this wasn't originally a bodybuilding or health and fitness podcast. So then that's when you come up with DD on the spot, and then you're like, it gets so recognizable that like you can't change the name now, even though people are like, it doesn't seem like a wellness or like a fitness podcast, and you're like, yeah, well, you do what you do. So if I could redo it again, you guys hit the nail on the head with your first try. So more power to you on that. But when you're changing all these divisions, I mean, has your cardio changed at all? Because I can imagine with the leanness that you got, you were probably doing a little bit more cardio than you did in your previous preps.
So the coach I had last year wouldn't let me actually do any cardio. Hence, probably why my.
I mean, that's not a bad problem to have, but still.
But I mean, I knew my body at that point, and I knew I needed cardio. I know how my body functions, so we didn't actually do that much cardio. So we did about 45 minutes of just lifts towards the start. Then we started to sort of implement strategies. So I chose to do this. I said, can I do this? So I would walk down to the gym with my 10 kilo vest on, which is about a 50-minute walk there. Then I'd jump on a stepper and I'd do that for 45 minutes with a vest on, and then I'd walk back with a vest on. And then I'd probably go another 2 or 3 times. So I was doing 20,000 steps with the vest on and the cardio. But I just got into such a routine. I'd wake up and, I'd probably get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, walk down there, do that, come back, eat. And I'll just be walking around a lot. So, I mean, I track it on I've got an Aura ring, so I just track it on there. So the cardio actually wasn't too bad. We pushed quite hard. So then when we could sort of eat into the prep, if that makes sense. So we just got everything off really. I mean, I dropped from, what was I? I was 83.4 kilos and my stage weight was 61. So I dropped quite a lot.
That's like doing that's like 40 pounds almost for like, because I know kilograms is like almost double for like pounds. So
Yeah.
that is, wow. I mean, more power to you. And I mean, you mentioned this before, and I've never brought this up on a podcast. Like you said, you have ADHD and I have ADHD. Do you think that benefits your training at all? Because most people that aren't really that aware with ADHD now, a lot of people have ADHD, but there's a thing called hyperfocus that comes along with ADHD, where
Hmm.
if you do something that you're really into, I mean, stuff becomes easier.
Yeah.
Does having ADHD, you think, help you in any aspect when it comes to your bodybuilding lifestyle?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's what keeps me like grounded and focused. I mean, I didn't actually know I had ADHD. I just thought it was a normal part of living. And then two of my siblings got diagnosed with it, and then my sister as well. And I was like, actually, yeah, I think I've definitely got ADHD. So, I mean, I've been waiting for a full diagnosis, but it's definitely there. So, yeah, I mean, I just found that it's bodybuilding's kept me like focused and grounded. And I think, yeah, definitely it's had a big impact on keeping me focused on what I'm doing, because types of ADHD, some people you get hyper focus or you're all over the place. So,
Ding,
like
ding, 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 ding,
my
ding,
other
ding, ding, ding.
brother's all over the shop. He can't focus on one thing. He's all over. Like 1 minute he's this, then he's that, then he's this, then he's that. I do get that with when I'm talking to people. They're talking to me. I'll be thinking about 5 or 6 other topics, and I can bounce from topic, and I can't stop it. But if I'm doing something like training or in prep, I can pull it in and utilize it.
Yeah, that's exactly me. I mean, if it's a subject or a conversation that I'm interested in, I am like zoned into the extreme where it's like, it's ridiculous. Or like if I'm just sitting here editing, like 5, 6 hours can go by and I don't even know that they went by, and I'm just like, oh wow, that's interesting. But yeah, when it comes to like, yeah, my mind is just all over the place. So I have that type of ADHD where unfortunately I cannot hide it. Where it's as soon as you meet me within about 5 minutes, you're like, oh yeah, this is a case. It's like it's unhide. That's the thing. That's the thing I think with guys. I think with women it's a little bit easier to hide it a little bit. But like with guys, it's
Hmm.
like we show it all out. Where it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a whole thing. So there are some benefits to it. Not everyone thinks that it might just be a crux, but there's like no, there are some benefits to having it as
yeah.
well. Just like with a lot of other things as well. So, do you plan on differentiating this off season at all from the ones that you've had in the past? Because, like you said, you have a new coach and everything. How do you plan on differentiating this off season?
Yeah, so normally in my off seasons, I kind of do my own thing. I coach myself, which there's nothing wrong with. But with how busy my schedule is at the minute, it's paramount basically to have that accountability. So I have my coach, and I've also taken on an actual trainer to just give me training. So my coach coaches me, and people don't understand the difference between that. Like, why have you got why have you got a coach, and B, why have you got a trainer? So there's a difference to that. I train on my own all the time. I've always trained on my own, and I need, especially with the type of tissue I need to put on, I need to make sure I've got a structured routine of my nutrition. I need someone like on it with my training, and I can go and visit him as well, and he'll help me out. So he's called Connor McMillan, and he he trains my good friend Sarah Bradley, who's an IFBB women's physique competitor. She's insane, by the way. You should get her on here because she's epic. And if you see the work that he's done with her, again, I'm not saying I'm her, but I mean, he's just brilliant. I've trained with him a few times, and he is brutal. He's absolutely. I mean, you come away from there and you literally just feel like you've been obliterated. So I thought, if I need to step my game up, let's do it properly. Let's have every single facet and component ticked and looked after. And I'm in my off seasons where I'm structured in terms like, yeah, I'll eat stuff as well that I want, but I won't go off the handle, get unnecessarily fat and people might think, oh, that's silly, but there is something that's unnecessarily fat to us because when we start prep, we've got to work a whole lot harder to get it off. And we get big in the off season anyway. We get uncomfortably big, but it's all part of it. So those aspects that will definitely, I reckon they'll play a massive part. So I mean, we're going to take about 12 months off. So yeah, I think we'll make a difference.
That is one aspect that just pisses me off a lot is when people ask like, oh, why do these people have coaches or why do they have trainers and stuff like that? Like
Yeah.
they should be able to do that by themselves. And it's like, I've talked to people on the Olympia stage and they all have coaches and they all have trainers. And it's like, I'm going to cherry pick now to the UK audience, just in case that there's anyone there that's like, why does David Beckham ever have a coach on the pitch? See, this is where I'm trying to appeal to the British audience right here. So there's that. For the Americans, why did Michael Jordan ever have to have a coach? I mean, it's like it's like, no matter what you're never not good enough to get other people's advice and other people's wisdom imparted onto you. But a question that I've recently just been asking everyone, which again proves how good of a podcast host I've been. I've done over 550 of these and it just popped up to me about 10 episodes ago to ask, what in your opinion makes a good coach? Because I've heard so many stories of people, oh, I got this coach and, it only lasted a year. And then there are other times where I talk to people and their coaches have been with them for like a decade and they're just a successful, partnership. But I find with coaching, it's a lot like being a teacher where it's like you can be really strict and really stern with a student and that's exactly what they need and what they're looking for. If you do that to someone else, they could fall apart mentally and it just doesn't work. So it's all about what works best for you. But in your own personal case, what makes a coach good in your eyes?
So I think that it's like a mutual respect is one of the things, and trust, because you're hiring that coach to make you the best you can be. I don't want a coach lying to me. I don't want a coach saying, Deb, yeah, you look really good when I look like crap. I want them to say, yeah, Deb, you need to bring this up. I need to be told that I'm a very direct person, and I like that approach for me personally is very good, because it's not all like rainbows and unicorns. Like my coach has said to me many times, Deb, you need to do this, you need to do that. My body wasn't moving at one point and it was being stubborn, and I said, right, let's do it. He's like, you've got to do this, let's do it. So that's fine. So that part, but there's also, they do treat you, when you're struggling, they're not just going to keep berating you like a drill sergeant. They need to have that, they have that know-how of when to not give you crap and just say,
which that is a gift, I have to say. Yeah,
it's very difficult, I would say. But the problem is, if you're with an athlete and that athlete wants to be a pro and then eventually make it to the Olympia stage, you can't tiptoe around them. You have to be honest. And I think, like I said, honesty and trust is a massive, massive component. And I think if I had a coach, which I had previously, that just let things slide by, then they're not fulfilling their role as my coach, and there's no point in having someone there. So yeah, and my coach made sure that he was present at shows he could make it to as well. He was there, and I think that's such a great aspect to have, because then they can see you in person, they can support you in person. And yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, I've worked with probably 4 coaches in my time, all of which I've had different experiences with. And again, professionalism as well, especially as a female working with a male coach. I don't know if you've had, there's been coaches over here that have just taken advantage of that massively. So having a coach that respects you not as a female, as an athlete, and treats you like an athlete, I think is a massive, massive, everything that needs to be.
I have heard dozens of those stories, and it got to a point where I was like, if I was a female, I would not even want to have a male coach. Then after hearing all this stuff, like it's hard. Yeah, it is definitely a gift to be a good coach, and you're basically a therapist too. I mean, like, let's be completely honest.
Yes.
You should go to school for your therapy. Like, it will help you immensely as a coach then, because you are dealing with all that stuff as well. That and whenever someone says they're a personal trainer, I was like, oh, so did you major in therapy in college or something like that?
Yeah.
But no,
That's it. I mean, I coach people myself, and you can't have them check in and be like, this is how my training's going, nutrition, but I've got a lot of stress going on because of this. So that stress that they're speaking about will directly impact their progress training. They're going to hold water, like I said before. So all of these things needs to be taken into consideration, because if you just gloss over them, you're going to cause more stress. So you're not really, you have to, like I said, you have to balance it, don't you, and fine tune things.
Yeah, and talking about stress too, I mean, that is the unsung effect that people do not get when they get into this journey, that like they don't realize how much stress impacts your overall journey. I know you said that like you dealt with stress in this last prep by just sort of like cutting off everything that was stressful to you, but even in times when you couldn't avoid stress, what are some tips that you use yourself to help deal with stress? Because you're talking to a very stressful person myself, and I'm not even asking this just for the guests. I'm asking this for myself too. I'm going to make a
Okay.
list of like, this is what all these other guests are doing, so I can help myself.
So a strategy that I've implemented quite a lot, and I actually give this to my advice to my clients, my family, friends. So I always give myself two choices. So if it's something, can I fix it? I ask myself, can I fix it? If it's yes, I'll do my best to fix it. If it's no, then I just leave it be, because if it's in my control, I'll control it and I'll try and fix it. If it's not, there's nothing I can do about it, and it is what it is. So that frame of mind, I think, helped me quite a lot. Instead of thinking, if I stress about it, stressing about something is not going to change it. You either action it or you don't. And I think just that one rule for me really helped me with. I think it did, and it's kind of, if I didn't want to do something as well, normally I would say, yeah, I'll help. I just started saying no, and that honestly was the biggest breakthrough for me, because I always want to help people, but to a point where helping them was going to take energy from me and inhibit me from what I wanted to do. So I just learned to say no as well, which was difficult at first, because especially English people tend to want to please all the time as well. So yeah, that's fine. We'll do that. Yeah. I just started saying no, I'm not doing it. And yeah, those two things really did help.
I'm Norwegian, so I understand that aspect completely. Where
Yeah.
that's where I'm in Minnesota. It's a very heavily Scandinavian state, so it's we are. There have been times where people have rescheduled podcasts, and it's cut into like personal time, and I'm just like, yeah,
Hello,
okay.
I did that once.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. This is perfectly fine. This is perfect time for me right there, everyone. Trust me. If I were to talk to every guest that like had to reschedule with me, it's like at least a third of them. So it's no big deal.
At least what's a valid excuse?
Oh yeah, she had a valid excuse. Everyone, I've had one guest where it's just like, yeah, I have like strep throat, and then they're posting the next day that like they're totally fine. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. But like, I trust me. No, I'm talking about times where like it cut into like a wedding that I was gonna go to, and then I was just a little bit late to. I'm just one of those people where I do have a hard time saying no. So that's one thing that I do need to work on, just because I am a huge people pleaser myself as well. But when I had you on last year, I did not know how much of a watershed year it was going to be in the sport of bodybuilding when it came to, like all the deaths that happened, all the stuff that came out, where I knew about all that stuff, behind the scenes, because I've talked to so many bodybuilders and stuff, but the general public, I think, got a really good glimpse of the extremes that happen in this sport. What was your reaction like, just as a competitor looking into the lens of last year? Because it was so impactful, I think, for so many people, just seeing all that stuff happen and all that unfortunate loss that the sport suffered.
I think it was quite a big impact, and I think it's scary as a competitor, because you don't know what the cause of death is for a lot of these athletes, and then when things start to surface, then going back on the thing, I won't mention specific coaches, but
Yeah.
then protocols that certain coaches were using were just, they were out of this world. You just wouldn't do that. You just wouldn't do that. So I think that was, yeah, I think it put people into a massive scare for sure, and I suppose it made people be a little bit more diligent with who they're choosing as a coach, and also made the athletes themselves do the research, because even if a coach asks you to do something, you still have a choice not to do it. And I think, it's very unfortunate these people die, but you can't be, the coach will tell them to do it. If someone asked me to do some of those protocols that I saw, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's asking. That's basically asking for it. And I know the problem is as well, on the flip side of that, when you're in a prep and you do anything to win, to get your pro card, to go see Olympia, you're willing probably to do anything. You're not in the right frame of mind to make that decision as well. So I think there's so many different perspectives of that. But I think as a whole, as a bodybuilding community, it did hit everyone quite hard, because a lot of very renowned and top bodybuilders that I respected and passed away, unfortunately, and there were quite a few female deaths as well, weren't there? Yeah, so that again was quite scary, and then a lot of other female competitors started to come out the woodworks and talk about what these coaches had them on protocols, and I did a lot of research into that and watched those. So it kind of didn't go unnoticed. I think it helped educate people quite a lot on what was going on.
I have never mentioned this, but I'm not going to mention her name, but there was one guest that I was going to have on literally 2 weeks before she died. So yeah, that was really impactful for me, just to see that. And I will say, overall, yeah, a lot of it is the coach's fault, but there also is, I think, that little bit of a there's a relationship between some of their competitors with the coaches where if the coach says jump, the competitor will say how high. And then,
Yeah.
There needs to be a little bit more of that. Now, again, I've never been that lean down where probably my brain would be so shot that I would do probably whatever someone said too, just because your judgment skills. It's probably got to be close to being intoxicated, where it's just like your judgment is just so shot because of how drained you are. And so again, I don't really think I should say anything like that because again, I've never been to that thing, but I just think that's a problem as well. But I am glad that I do think things are slowly changing, maybe a little bit, and maybe not as much as I would like to see or other people would like to see. But I do think it was a catalyst, and I do not know what the future is going to look like in 5 years. But hey, we will see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, and
Yeah, it's a constant cycle of changing, isn't it? That I think people need to remember as well, in order to get, specifically hitting on females here, for a female to get into the type of conditioning they're asking for, that's a big ask for us. That's tough. Like, we naturally hold more body fat, so it's very difficult for us to get to that low sort of percentage.
yeah, that is, there's probably been one or two of them I had on the podcast that are just that genetic jackpot
Yeah,
freaks that like they can do it easily, and I hate them more than life itself, where I'm just like, you don't realize how lucky you are. There was one girl who showed me a photo when she was like 8 years old in gymnastics, and she was like more developed than a lot of guys that I know, like muscularity wise, and it's like, what can you do? So there are those freaks out there, and as long as they don't advertise it, like you can look just like them by doing that, where it's like, no, God just pointed at you and said, I'm gonna make a mockery of everyone else by just making you
yeah.
that much easy to put on size. But your food, what are you eating now as you're like putting on more and more size? Like what are your calories, what are that? Because I've found that just the thing about off season that I really don't think is stressed off enough is like how hard it is for some of these people to eat that much food, especially as you're putting in those last few bites.
So I'm not actually sure. Like, I'll have to go on my thing now and look how many calories on. This sounds really bad, but this is the beauty of having a coach, because sometimes I don't want to know how much I'm eating. I just want to eat it because, especially pushing the higher realms of things, as the larger categories, we're putting away a lot of food. I'm eating every 2 hours. Like, I don't think at the minute they're actually that high. So I'm saying they're not that high. I'm 3.5 weeks post show, so I'm eating 2,000. I'm trying to read that, 2,535 calories,
Oh.
and I'm eating that every day at the minute because I'm still kind of reversing out. So I think peak off season last time.
Do you remember how many calories you were at like during your last few weeks of prep?
God, I mean, at least I reckon I'd probably hit 1,000, maybe slightly sub.
You guys, I tell you.
I wasn't hungry though,
Yeah.
and I mean, my last off season, I was probably hitting over 3.5, maybe just sub 4. So we do push off season. I mean, it's either you're so you're so stuffed from the volume of food that you eat in the off season, or you're just starving hungry in the prep. But we do enjoy that. We wouldn't do it if we didn't. We do enjoy it. It's a challenge, and like I said, I didn't actually feel hungry. I was too focused on what I was doing to feel hungry. Like, the hunger was just there. It just existed. It wasn't really so prominent that I was like, oh, I want to eat this. I wasn't craving anything either. Normally I'll go on those sites on Instagram and I'll look at all the cookies and stuff. Didn't bother me this time round. I was too focused.
Well, I mean, I asked you this last time as well, but I mean, you definitely changed it with how, lean you got. What were some of the reactions that you were getting, like, in general public, just walking around? I know you probably weren't paying too much attention to that, but still, like, when you're that lean, like, and especially in the UK where bodybuilding isn't really as big as it is here in the States, where it's still not that big here, but I mean, like, what were the reactions that you were getting, like, just walking around looking like that?
So I actually kept myself even in this heat, I kept myself covered up because I wanted it to be like almost like a shock, but people would see my face first, but they wouldn't know what's underneath. So I just literally look something like a crackhead. People would look at you and they're like, "Oh God!" But then I had to start
Another fentanyl case, everyone.
Yeah, literally. So
Yeah.
people were looking like that. But after a while, I had to take the tops off because it was just too hot. And you get the one and then the double glance. You get people coming up to you saying, do you work out? I say, no, I don't work out at all.
This is just from knitting. Yeah.
This is just this is from crocheting and knitting. you get those types of comments, or people look at you. I think because I'm well known within the county where I am. People are like, very taken back because not a lot of people would see me in that condition and that size before. And obviously, the more cut you are, the more illusion it gives to you looking bigger. And yeah, I think people underestimated me, and when they saw me, they were very, very, very surprised. But just general public, yeah, you get the stares. Obviously, when it's hot, you're so vascular. I like it when it shocks people because I'm like, yeah, I'm looking what I need to look like now because I'm scaring the general public. So yeah, I'll get people that'll come up and ask to take pictures with me and stuff like that because it's like it's a weird thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, look, there's a weird person. Let's go get a picture. But yeah, I mean, generally, just good reactions, really.
I don't know if I was gonna say this to you, but like I remember following you because I check in on my guests, every couple of weeks I'll just check in, and I saw your off season and I was like, okay, she must be taking like a full year off then, like this last one, because I was like, there's no way she can lean down for that. So I will have photos popping up of just the extremes of how she went from her off season to how lean she got. I was shocked by it. That's why I was like, okay, I definitely need to have her on now because like I don't know what's going on over there because I need some secrets there. But like, yeah, she one of the bigger changes I've ever seen from like an off season to in season. So like you said, that's like 40 pounds that she lost. And it was, I mean, you could tell. And that reaction's priceless. I mean, especially you saying that you never work out. That's the excuse that I always used to use when I was really in really good shape in college. I'd just be like, no, I just thought to myself, grow muscles grow. And they just did it. That's
Yeah,
really how the power of the
you just
mind.
wish
Yep.
you just wish
Absolutely.
you don't have to go to the gym. You just wish it, and it happens.
And one thing that I did notice that I don't know if I talked to you about this last time, but when I went to my show that I went to, the first one I ever went to like 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to go to another one in October that's around, I caught the bug. It was a lot of fun. I met a lot of guests that I've had on from around Minnesota, which was nice, but it's just the camaraderie that's in the sport, especially among the females. We're like, as soon as their friend went up on stage, everyone was running to the front to get photos of them on stage. Everyone behind the scenes, was doing everything with them. Everyone like outside of the arena was, doing their photos with them and doing everything to help them. And it was just such a tight knit community. How important is that community to you? Because like I said, you do a podcast with other, competitors
Hmm.
as well, which shows, the closeness, but you don't find that in nearly any other sport, just that type of closeness that they have. How important is that to you?
I think it's really important, especially again as females within bodybuilding, because there's so many things that when we had Rachel Daniels on and we were talking about that with her, and the thing that I mentioned earlier, like you get uncomfortable in your off season. Again, I'm not knocking competing competitors here, but they don't have to push to the extremes of us in off
Oh, I'll
season.
knock them for you. Yeah, it's a completely different sport. Yeah.
But they can still keep in relatively, I'm gonna say, we're not in bad shape, but they can keep in relatively like good shape. They don't have to push too much. We have to sacrifice a clothes size or two. We have, I've got two wardrobes, and I'll probably have to go up another wardrobe size. So I've got a wardrobe size for prep and a wardrobe size for off season. And yeah, we have to go up, and then you get loads of, there's issues with that. You can't wear normal bras anymore. You just wear sports bras all the time. You get like chafing on your legs. I mean, getting a dress on. All of the dresses that I wear are backless or halter neck. I can't get a normal dress on anymore. I'll buy like a size 18 or something because that's how what my back fits into. But then it doesn't really fit my waist because my waist is tons smaller. So it's problems like that. And there's other problems as well that potentially like you can get like some certain side effects with like PEDs and stuff like that. So it's knowing that you're not going through those things alone and being able to share that with the other competitors as well, which I think it's super important because even though bodybuilding is a very solitary sport, and you are on your own to an extent, but if you can expand that and share that with other competitors, you don't feel so alone. I mean, we don't do it to please other people, but it's nice to have women that understand, or other competitors that understand what you're going through. And when you start talking to them, you're like, oh, like I'm not the only one that has that issue. It's all these other people as well. So it's very, very important. It sometimes it upsets me when I see competitors slate each other, and there's so few of us. It's more important, without it sounding cheesy. You just need to come together. Even if all women's physique competitors and we all go against each other, it's so much nicer to be on a good foot with people because then we can put on a decent show for the spectators as well. There can be way more energy on stage when you're flexing next to each other and having a good time. Like my two friends, so Sarah Bradley and Romana Scottson. So they're both pros. I'm not yet a pro, but I will be, and I'm sure one day we'll step on stage next to each other, and it will be a hell of a lot of fun. Instead of being looking people up and down.
You give them an elbow every once in a while when you're on stage.
Yeah, you give them a shove, but it's very important, and especially with a lot of things.
You tell them you're looking a little fat today.
The thing is, we do have a good rapport, which we will, we'll say stuff to each other. We'll call each other like moon face. I get called a ghost because I'm so pale. We have banter, so we don't get offended.
Debbie, look at this. You're not a ghost. Look at this.
Currently, I've been out paddleboarding, and I think this is sunburn.
This is the Norwegian skin. That's the only bad thing about being a Scandinavian, really. Is this just the paleness? Yeah,
you need to get on. I'm normally pale. Wait till winter. I'll go full incognito. I'll go ghost like.
Winter, I'm pale albino. I don't know. Like it gets close to that. So I just get farmer's tan. That's the only thing. So yeah, it'll be just like you as well. But I mean, before we get close to wrapping things up here, I mean, the Arnold just announced, they're getting rid of, women's figure along with women's physique. And I mean, it's both divisions that you've been in. What's that reaction been like for you? Because I mean, like, I was shocked when they even just got rid of physique, but then when they announced also figure as well, I'm like, okay, what, are they just going to get rid of every women's side then, basically?
So again, a lot of my friends are either figure or physique. And like I said, I've competed in figure before. There's no explanation. I know they've given some explanation, but I don't understand because women's physique. Sorry, my dog's sneezing at me.
No
women's physique it's quite scarce here in the UK. It's quite scarce in America and all over the world. But that category exists in the Olympia, and it's a sick category. The art, the way they pose, the show that they put on, for me, it's one of the main attractions because you can do so much with women's physique. The way they present themselves. I mean, Sarah is just something like she's due to come on our podcast at some point. She's just, the effort that she puts in to try and advocate women's physique. She pays for shows. She does like the Women's Physique Award. It's proof that people are interested in it because it's at the Olympia. Likewise, figures at the Olympia. So figures always got a very good lineup as well. And I don't understand. None of us understand. We're actually quite angry, to be honest. We don't understand why they're being excluded. Why is figure being taken out? Why is women's physique being taken out? Why is bikini? I know bikini is, they've got a larger amount of competitors, but doesn't mean that people are less interested because there's not as many. We don't understand. We're very frustrated.
I mean, any other show, I'd be upset, but like the fact that it's the Arnold and it's named after the guy that's had more impact on the sport of bodybuilding than anyone else that's ever lived. I mean, when you think of bodybuilding, for a lot of people, they just think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just that. It's like that really puts the nail in the coffin for me. It's like how that's, I honestly don't understand it myself. I mean, I get, some of the reasoning why, and when I say I don't accept it. Like, I don't think it's right, but I get why they're saying some of that, but it's like these people, I'm sorry. Physique competitors, they put in more work than bikini competitors. Figure competitors, they put in more work. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying with their diet, I'm saying with the training is usually a little bit more intense. And I'm not saying I'm not knocking bikini competitors. I have a lot of them on and I appreciate them and they are great. But it's like, it is a completely different thing. So I think it's, the dedication to that, I think is just notched up just a tad bit and more. And yeah, so I do not understand that myself. But I mean, this, again, another question that took me forever. Okay, what kind of dog do you have? We got to have a dog in a... Oh, sorry. That's so cute.
This is one of them, and he's barking at me to get my attention.
He's got the little belly right there. I love it.
He has got a little belly, haven't you?
Oh, what's his name?
So that one's Chico, and then I've got Fox. Come here. I've got another one. This is the other one.
Oh.
Yeah, they're my two sidekicks.
Wait, so you have a guy and a girl, so please don't tell me that you don't have a litter of puppies on the way or anything.
Oh no, they're both neuters.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, yeah.
I would have loved that.
That would have been, the only problem is that because we have a little Cavachon too, and the only problem is that like with little dogs, I didn't know this until someone told me is that like they have more complications usually happen in their pregnancies than that because they're just so small. So that's another, reason why as well. But I mean, a question again that took me forever to come up with, and I think this just the human nature in me. I just think this whenever I have a bodybuilder on or just a competitor, why do they do this to themselves? Why do they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brain stories and I hear all these other things. And obviously I know why, but like just the human being in me, just deep down in my DNA is just like, why do they do this to themselves? I bet. And if you were to tell me that you never think that during any of your preps, I will agree with you. But deep down, I'll be like, okay, she's lying. Like I'll just accept it just because she's on here. But like you still probably hear that from friends and family. Just like, Debbie, why do you do this to yourself? What is your why? How do you like to respond to that? Because let's be honest, everyone's thought that every once in a while, like, why do these people do this to themselves?
Well, again, I would be lying if of course, you get to points in prep where, for instance, when I was walking out in the rain, and then a lorry, we call them lorries, you guys call them trucks, drove past in a massive puddle, and it literally swished over me like a wave, and I just stood there, and I had to calm myself. I was like, why am I doing this? And then it was a matter of seconds. It just
The song "Walking on Sunshine" was going on in your head while you were
yeah,
while that was happening.
and then I just turned into a demon. But it clicked straight out. It went within seconds. And you get those microseconds where you will doubt yourself or you do this, but I'm so quick at actually pinpointing that and smothering it, and then it's gone. So it's I do wonder. Obviously sometimes you wonder why you do it, but 99% of the time I want to do this, and it's the longest I've ever stuck by something. And it's just, for me, essentially I couldn't actually imagine myself doing anything else. It's from the moment I get up, I think about it. I'm prepping my food, I'm going out for walks, I'm helping my clients do that, I'm training, I'm setting the goal for the next thing I want to do. There's so much going on around it, and it feels very natural for me to do this. It's kind of like it was what I was meant to do, because I did modeling before, as you know, and that felt very sort of forced. Whereas this just feels like it's meant to be for me. Like it was what I was meant to do. So yeah, it's just one of those things, really. And I could, if someone said to me, "I'll pay you X amount of money to stop bodybuilding," I wouldn't do it, because I love it. It keeps me structured. It keeps me focused. Like, it's helped me in so many other aspects of my life as well.
Even 100 million?
No, no.
Enough to buy
No,
your own
because
private island somewhere?
yeah, but I would never be able to train again. Not allowed to do any of that stuff. So
I would just still train. I just wouldn't compete in a show.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about not doing any aspect of bodybuilding, and it's because I mean, everyone probably thinks, oh yeah, you would take that money. I wouldn't. Trust me, I've been offered a lot of money from a lot of these muscle worship people, and I still turn it down. So
that is a whole different thing that I was not aware of before I started doing this podcast and getting into that like that.
That's just there's like a realm. It's like a rabbit hole. Once you go down it, you can't actually fathom what's going on.
I mean, just didn't realize that there are human beings like that. But I mean, hey, as long as they're not like harming anyone, I guess. Yeah, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. But they use social media as almost like
I mean, I know people that like feet too, and that to me is just as weird too. So I mean, and that's so yeah, it's a fetish. Yeah. So yeah, that's
it is. It's very annoying though, because you'll get people that, what I've had recently is people trying, because I coach, they'll ask me if I offer coaching. You talk through it.
That's how they get into it. Yep.
Then they get into it, and then the thing is as well, I do consultation calls, so then they'll get on the consultation call, and you've got a 50-50 if it's going to be a real person that wants coaching or someone that's just trying to get you on there to see you. So it's a very...
That's the whole reason I started this podcast, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. This has all been a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, this has all been just a huge pyramid scheme for me. No, that's what one guy accused me of, and I was like, I had 100 bands on before this, so the dedication that it would have taken me to do that, with my ADD, I do not have that focus and that dedication for really anything. So yeah, that why
it's fine as long as you give me all the royalties and stuff. And
that too. Yeah, I'll give you the 20 cents that you'll probably earn from YouTube revenues for this. So you'll be able to buy a gumball from a gumball machine or something like that.
That's all that matters to me. That's it. I've done this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, before we wrap this up, I mean, 2 questions that I ask every single guest, and I'll continue to ask you no matter how many times I have you on. If you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, someone were to walk up to you and say, Debbie, you can change one thing, and everyone will go along with it. Will be one thing that you'd like to see changed.
I think, obviously, with current situations, being more inclusive for the larger women, like the female categories, that's one thing that definitely needs to change.
Mm-hmm. That too, and the prize money has been one thing that I've been getting to recently, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you are a pro, you should have like a stipend of like maybe like 20, 30,000, not like so significant, but like enough that like you can fall back on it. And because people don't understand, just maintaining this lifestyle and having a regular 9 to 5 job, it is unnecessarily hard when it comes to just the time management. So it's like, if you could have just a little stipend where they can maybe have a little bit more freedom in their lives, where it's not so stressful and it's not trying to balance. Like, 'cause I've had people that have had 2, 3 jobs while bodybuilding, and I'm just like, that dedication, you should, be a nuclear scientist or do something with it where it's like something valuable. But it's like, yeah, that if they could just, make things just a little bit easier on these guests, I would be purposely, all for it myself. But yeah,
But
and
yeah, there are big discrepancies between the male prize money and the female
that
prize
too.
money.
Yeah, honestly,
Massive discrepancies. So yeah, I mean that's something that definitely needs. Overall, they need to be more. I'm all for equality, and I'm not a feminist. I believe in equal rights for both men and women. So I just think that there should be a bit more inclusivity of the large female categories, and just we're athletes. We're still putting in the same amount of effort. We just be like, we should be treated the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely needs to be a conversation that needs to be had. I mean, it's like you got to place top 3 at the Olympia if you're a female, if you even want to like break even, really, really with how
Yeah.
much you put into it. So it's just,
Yeah.
and if you win it, like if Andrea Shaw, who's going to win it again this year, that's my prediction, everyone. I'm standing by it because there's no one even close to her. But
I
like,
think
you get a car basically, and that's too. And it's like, that would be funny though if she wins it like 10 years in a row and she just has like 10 of those same cars just like in her driveway. That would be kind of funny though, because
she's like, guys, I need I need something else. I've got too many
exactly.
cars.
It's like David Dobrik giving all of his friends cars, and they're like, David, you given me like 8 cars this year. Like, you need to pay me money as opposed to that. But yeah, I was watching I watched the Elvis movie, and that was a huge thing that he did too, where like he didn't even have his guys on salary. He would just give them gifts all throughout the year. So again, my Elvis tangent that I got into right there. So I never thought that would happen on this podcast, but hey, it happened, everyone. But
Open to anything.
Yep, Debbie, it's been a year and a half. I'd love to have you back on in a year. Where would you like to be
Keep
at?
up
I know you
now.
said you're going to take like 12 months off, but where would you like to be at if we have you back on a year? It might be like a year and a half then if you're going to take like 12 months off on prep, but like where would you like to be at the next time that we have you on, and when you're probably getting ready for your next show?
I want to be in. So my thing is, I want to be in a position where I've done. I want to put on mass all over. Really, I want to keep my shape. I like my shape. I just want to fine tune other things. I mean, they're happy with my upper, apart from my arms. I want to add size on my legs, and when I start prep and get into prep, I want to be in a position where I can go in quite confident. Again, not arrogant, confident that I can get my pro card, and then I want to be in a position where I could possibly dip my toes and doing a pro debut straight away. So yeah, that's where I'd like to be.
Can I just say how jealous I'm of you that you've been given the green light to train arms as much as possible to get them to grow? Every gym bro and their brother is like saying like, that's the greatest thing ever. So why you're saying like you didn't know about that is like, trust me, the gym bro in me is just like, what a lucky SOB basically. Like she
I
gets
don't train them that much, to be honest.
that's
I just do a couple, and they're naturally quite big. So if I completely sort of go for it, I think they will pick up. I stopped training them at one point because they were getting too big. So I know I can get the size in them. That's for sure. It's the legs that are going to be the not the problem, but they're going to be the ones that are going to challenge me. But that's why we do it, isn't it? It's for the challenge and to be better.
Again, that's the difference between bodybuilders. I mean, most guys in the gym will just train their arms every single day for like 10 years straight. And then there's a lot of difference in that too. But I mean, again, Debbie, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Thanks for having me on. So
Absolutely.
There's loads of people. So obviously my podcast team, so Sarah Bradley and Romana Scottson, if you want the names then.
I will try to get both of them on individually as well. That would be great to have.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah's in prep at the minute. She's off to do, is it Legions Fair? And then another one in Romania. Is it Winter Strength maybe? I don't know the names of them. But she's competing in October, November. That's her pro debut she's doing. Then you've got Romana Scottson. She's currently in her off season. My coach Tom Hames, like he's a brilliant prep coach. So anyone that's like, big females that want help with prep, he's the guy to hit up. He's Evolution Training. All my sponsors, so Core Muscle Nutrition, and I've got the Biltong Factory as well, which is an absolutely brilliant sponsor. With they gave me all my food, and just my family and friends, really, everyone. I'll be on here all day reeling them off, but yeah, there's a lot of people that help me do what I do. So yes.
Well, more luck to your friend going to Romania. I mean, I'd take a stick of garlic and a cross with that you could impale someone with and some holy water. I ain't messing around with that stuff. But yeah, that is great. And again, everyone go and check out Debbie's Instagram page and the podcast down below. I'll leave it below. And yeah, I keep doing what you're doing with the podcast, because trust me, as someone who does this, I know how hard it can be at times and stuff. And it's really just, it's a passion project too. So it's great to have other people. Cause like when I started doing like health and fitness guests like 3 years ago, like there was nothing. And then now that's nice to see that everything else has sort of popped up. I'm not saying that I'm taking the credit for it, but I'm just saying like since then there's been a couple dozen now that I've just, it's great to see that more exposure has been happening, for
Yeah.
the sport as well. But again, Debbie,
We'll
thank you
be
so much.
Thank you. We'll be sure to plug you on ours as well, because obviously you interview
Absolutely.
some amazing athletes, so it'd be good
I,
to support one another.
I appreciate that. Well, again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.